Good evening for UK and Europe. Good morning, afternoon, early morning in USA, in America, and hey there tomorrow for anybody from between Australia and Europe. Which at this time they're just it's Saturday. They are in beginning of their Saturday. Oh, sorry. That means that America it's late evening, late-ish, mid-evening. Sure, it wouldn't be six oscillators with tons of dubious information and non-actually factual information. But that's why you come here. Come for the information and stay for the train wreck, which is we're in for a very good start already because I've spent 5 minutes actually streaming to nobody because I don't use this thing every day. And StreamYard keeps improving and updating features and things to do and do the things different or better. I assume for the paying customers, which is not my case. But I would this show, well, call it show. This interaction wouldn't exist without it, so I should not complain too much, or at least not too loud. So, one more Friday evening, opening Saturday for some, midday for others, talking about six oscillators where synthesizers and guitars and synthesizers collide into one single wonderful unit. I made up I promised myself that this one is gonna be fairly short since I've been over broadcasting ever since the show started. We've never managed to stick to the 2 hour range for many reasons. Each show is a completely different reason. But I think it would be good for you and for me, and because what I like to go through today, because once again, remember that this show is not so much about disclosing the whole truth and giving you a masterclass on gear or any type of synth related information to you, as in for me also to join my process of learning about the whole genre, what's in the market nowadays, what was in the market in the past, where do we come from, where do we go for, what are we striving for, are we looking to the stars? Sometimes I do, very often. This is a follow-up. It's actually a part 3, although part 2 had a kind of clickbaity name or title, totally justified if you saw it. But this is a part 3. We're going through this little red baby the Behringer PP-1 Eurorack module, uh, which is basically voltage to, let's call it, let me rephrase that. Let's call it guitar to music or guitar to synth transformer. It takes whatever you play on your guitar through a standard quarter-inch cord into the unit, analyzes it, and recreates a different representation of that performance to either through control voltage, uh, CV, CV pitch, and trigger to interact with other Eurorack or amenable to Eurorack format electronics. Also does the same job into the digital realm of MIDI, standard, traditional. This little puppy here, in fact, you're gonna hear a beep there. The standard 5-pin DIN, classic, trustworthy, uh, although it's already been updated, as in the MIDI Association approved and is working on trying to kickstart MIDI 2.0. Funny enough, it took them the good part of 30 years to get to 2.0 version. I think they landed in 2.6 for more than a year. Sorry, more than a decade. Because they didn't really had to transform it. Useful as it is, powerful as it is, the MIDI format is still, or it still wasn't used to its full potential for many reasons. To my understanding, the generation exchange of musicians had a little bit to a little bit of blame in that happening. Also, the musical trends, because yes, MIDI was released when music was synthesizer centric, those wonderful and beloved 80s, 1980s. In the past century, Jesus Christ. Okay. It gets really sad when you think about it. But by the time it started reaching its peak performance and interaction and usability, synthesizer-centered music kind of fade out of the center of attention of the audiences, of the music lovers. You could say they moved back or just sideways to guitars or ethnic music or other samplers, electronic music, but not so much from the synthesizer point of view as from the drum machine sequencer point of view. And then all the digital revolution, composers, producers, etc. And I think that created kind of a void, because the old generation who knew the power of MIDI didn't have a chance to transfer their knowledge to the new generation that was getting and trying to create new genres within the electronic music possibilities with the new and old gear. Because funny enough, right on the verge of the 90s, a bunch of, well, at least that's the story I've been told, a bunch of kids here in UK going around in the, what we call car boot sales, which is, I don't know, everybody gathered together on an empty field and sell whatever they don't want out of the boot of their cars, their trunks for the Americans. They discovered 303s and half broken 808s and decided to use them improperly or not as it was intended. And they suddenly they created a new range of a new style of music, a new generation of music that, based on the 303, which had very limited, if not non MIDI capabilities, they kind of used just the bare minimum of the MIDI implementation, and they kind of skipped not a full decade, but a half a decade. Then that same generation, when they managed to get access to higher range or newer synthesizers with full MIDI implementations, is when they started to learn again from scratch what is MIDI, what it can do, how do you make the machines talk and synchronize, and how you can then at the time also make them talk to affordable personal computers. Because on an academic level in American universities, they have been sequencing synthesizers from computers ever since the very late 70s, but those level of gears were way beyond what British working class kids could afford. So all this just to say that Behringer also agreed to put back the 5-pin MIDI, the 5-pin DIN. But if I'm not mistaken, that's something that I'm gonna share my trip with you, my voyage through the unit to learn what and how can you use it. They also included this nifty little beautiful innovation that it came in the near 2000s or 2000s on, the USB cable protocol computer communication protocol that also got acquired as soon as possible, as soon as the manufacturers saw it actually grabbing on society. They incorporated it into their own synthesizers, units, Romplers, for instance. Yeah, the other way. This little baby Roland's XV 2020. I need to remind myself because I always get confused with the XPs, XVs, JVs. The 2020 came with a MIDI communication USB protocol right there. So, and that's the other option that the PP-1 I think it offers. So let's see if Behringer actually did it, how did it do it, and how do you handle it? What can you do with it? So first thing, plug it in. And we have a very gratifying pitty-ping, which tells through my computer he's connected. So what I'm 95% sure is that is that we need to clarify that this USB connection, although this is a unit made in the 2020s, it's not transmitting digital audio of any kind. All right, the Behringer in this unit, we're gonna check in a second, only agreed to put MIDI, I think, and firmware and communication to the Behringer app to handle hardware, as in configure, update, firmware updates, etc., through the USB. But they have not put any audio. The only way to plug your guitar into the PP-1 and get audio out of it is through the quarter-inch, is called drive-through connection. That's the only, and the line out. So basically you have a quarter-inch high impedance output drive-through, which is meant to be basically just a connector that is solder that its connections are just bridge to bridge the signal that comes from your guitar straight out. It's just it's a hardware bypass. It's a hardware link straight off. And then the line out, I assume it must be a different impedance, different signal level. Might have some amplification, or at least just impedance transformation. So it can go, I assume, to mixers. I've used it to mixers, to audio interfaces. It works pretty good. It sounds pretty nice. Not really nothing to complain about the line out, but those are the only audio connections that the unit has with the external world. So, guitar back in, although now it's just a cable, which makes a LED blink, and I don't know why. We're gonna find out in a minute. So I thought that the best way to show what it can do, it's sadly do what many people, allegedly mostly men, don't care to do often enough, which is let's check the manual. Okay? And I have this here prepared. Yeah. Okay. Cool. And now this one. And here we go. So let's see if I can do this. And please excuse me if I start looking around, because although this is kind of big enough, let me see if I can go full screen here. At least for a second. If you make any questions in the comment section, just give me a second. Whenever I jump out of the screen, I'll go and check them very quickly. So please don't be deceived, because the manual claims to be 44 pages long. No, it's not 44 pages long. It just have a ton of precautions and awareness, and I think 5 or 6 languages. So all the manual, all that it is to be explained in the manual. I'm trying to scroll the wrong window, as usual. Is basically 2 pages. This is all we get. Sorry, 3 pages with some warnings and working specs and just different languages. It must be a master specs at the end, and I don't know, possibly a MIDI implementation chart. Which in fact, let's go and check that. So sorry for the fast scrolling. So what's in? Yeah, they hear us. We know they hear us, like the brick border. So communications, specs in, looks like Japanese to me. This is more like a specs in English. Yep. So impedance, light CB gate, drive through, jack balance. Interesting. So they made it balanced. Cool. 5-pin DIN socket, USB Type 2, combined female XLR, gain gate knobs, gain THD, input impedance, instrument 1 mega, line 22 ohms, 1130 unbalanced. Okay. MIG 2.6. Yeah, those are the impedance of the combo. Okay. Consumption 60 milliamps at 12 and 50 milliamps at -12. So it's not too power hungry for your rack specifications. 10 HP wide. CV out accuracy approximately 0.1%. I'm not familiar with that, so I don't know if it's good or bad. Output impedance, audio is 100, gate is 1K, CB is 100. Cool. Do we have any mention of MIDI down here? No, because we're back on the standard and the languages. So I'm gonna take it that all the information we need to learn about the MIDI usage of this is gonna be in these 3 pages. Why MIDI? Why am I going so much about MIDI? Because the objective of tonight, my tonight, your morning or late evening, it's to use it as a control, a MIDI control device to play VST instruments, namely synthesizers, recreations, or any type of music creating software plugin. In my case, in VST format, since I'm running on a Microsoft on a Windows computer, but also applicable to audio units and AAX. Basically, any type of software that can be triggered through MIDI messages. That's why we need the PP-1 to be able to convert the voltage, the electronic voltage created by the guitar, into digital MIDI language signals to be able to talk with these instruments. So let's go through the controls one more time. We've done this before, but just to remind myself. So, yep, one USB, the USB socket. USB socket can be used both to output USB MIDI. We're in for a good start. Derived from the audio input, and for firmware updates, it will also accept MIDI input and convert to CB gate output. That's very interesting. That gives me an idea for a future show. Because I'm trying to think of ways to show that in my setup, but it could be really, really cool to either do both or have it just show that it can, as in go in reverse, the same way I can play guitar and send guitar through MIDI into the computer. The computer can also send CV and gate messages on the way out. I'm thinking either voltage modular or CBC? No, VCB rack. Is that the one? Yeah, I think it's VCB rack. Mostly because it was my first attempt. Sorry, once again, I'm going to the wrong one. Was my first attempt of a software modular environment. It still doesn't mean that I mastered that thing. There's still tons of things I don't know, and I don't have a clue of 90% of the modules in that free software, let alone all the paid for modules that you can acquire within the VCB rack ecosystem. But then I also, for different reasons, I also got into the Sherry Audio voltage modular Eurorack, virtual Eurorack environment. Okay, because those VSTs, those software, music making software or sound making software, are designed to give you the option of get familiar with the modular synthesis principles and concept within the Eurorack aesthetics and quirks but inside a computer at a way lower cost and lower uh, access point economically, as in way more affordable, on a more entry level. But yeah, what I wanted to confirm is confirmed. The USB socket is going to help us to connect and send MIDI to the computer. MIDI out socket is talking about the 5-pin DIN. Outputs MIDI messages derives from the audio output. Sorry, audio input. So yeah, the 5-pin just takes your guitar and sends MIDI out. It's still digital MIDI, but it's a different speed and protocol than USB. High C switch, that is to make the, once again, wrong screen, take a drink. So since you have a combi connection, XLR and TS quarter inch, you need to, or you are allowed to tell the unit, thanks to this number 3 switch, high Z, if you're actually using a low Z device, like a line output into this input. Remember, the flow of audio is an output going into an input. So what the PP-1 has is an input on a combi type of connection, combination of XLR and TRS, and obviously needs to be connected to the output of whatever source of audio you want to input, either be a guitar, a line for a mixer, or a high C guitar, either if it's passive or active. Usually you get better results on high C, because what it's not high C, it's very is way lower impedance. C is the technical term for impedance, for input impedance. So that's the connection to tell, hey, I'm connecting a guitar, or I'm not connecting a guitar, anything else but a guitar. Then a low cut, if your source is extremely rich in low frequency content, and you don't want that frequency content to overwhelm the signal conversion that the unit's doing, you can start by trimming the excess, in a way of speaking, by having a low cut filter to the input of whatever you plug in. Still, that applies, doesn't matter if it's a guitar, a line connection, or a microphone connection. You still can high pass or low cut a chunk of bass to help the system to focus on the higher frequencies. Why would that be interesting on a guitar to MIDI converting system? Because detection takes time. As in, pitch detection, frequency detection takes time. The processor inside the unit needs to measure to know the pitch. And the lower the frequency, the slower, the longer time it takes to measure, because the frequency is lower, therefore the repetition is slower. It's, I don't know if I'm making any sense, but basically what we call low frequencies are slow waves, slow wave frequencies, which are very long. They take very long to go, to push and back, push and back. What we call high frequencies are very fast waves that push and back very fast. That's how we can tell frequencies from each other: low, slow, high, fast. So to allow the system to detect faster, it's better if you can tell the system, okay, I'm not really interested about the bottom end of, could be just harmonics, resonance, or material that is not really sensitive or is not crucial for the music I'm doing, why don't you focus on the higher harmonic frequencies? Just focus on the frequencies that are very fast, and it would take you very short time to measure. That way, you're gonna be faster guessing what what musical note I'm playing, and you'll be faster transforming that into a digital language you can spread out of the connectors. That's the whole point about the low cut. It's not it's not so much as a equalization on a mixing desk, as in, oh, I want the sound nicer, or as in rounder, warmer, or sharper and brittle. No, it's about the processing speed and allowing the system to ignore irrelevant information, in a way of speaking. Irrelevant for the pitch detection purpose, not for the music purpose. Obviously, no frequency is irrelevant in music. But for when we're talking about computing cycles and trying to guess something from the input information, fast is better. Fast is more good, if you know what I mean. So that's the low cut switch, which in this case is at 12 dB per octave slope at 75 hertz. So in traditional terms, rumble, basically, body and rumble. Nothing really musically dramatic. Band switch. This is one. This is a head scratcher for me, because I'm not sure I understand it fully. Because basically it has three positions. This switch number 5 band. Here you can see it says off 1 and 2. And reads, so the band switch has the three positions which affect how the perfect pitch PP-1 tracks the input signal. Off, the CV and MIDI outputs will always quantize to the nearest semitone. Okay, I see that. I need a second to process, because that's not what the voltage, the CV out, this number 10, this is a jack, it's an 1/8-inch jack, TS I believe, does not do that. When you set that switch to off, the CV just tracks on real time whatever pitch variation you're making into the guitars, in all the bendings, all the slides. It just follows on real time. When the frequency changes, the CV changes instantly. And when I put it into 1 and 2, feels a little like it's limiting the bend that I can apply, or the way it transforms the pitch information into CV voltage. But I can see that here what they're saying is it's a little more involved on the digital side, on the 5-pin DIN and USB digital MIDI protocol. So off means that it's always going to be quantized, so it's either C or C sharp. You cannot create any frequency in between those notes, even when the guitar is playing C 20 cents sharp. The unit would either play C or C sharp, perfect C sharp, nothing in between. So with the switch on 1, CV output will allow a pitch bend of up to 1 semitone, and the MIDI outputs will send MIDI pitch bend messages. So the CV output will allow a pitch bend of up to 1 semitone, and the MIDI outputs will send MIDI pitch bend messages, as well as note on off if the note is bent through more than one semitone, then a new MIDI note on message based on the new note will be sent. Okay. So, because the MIDI protocol was trying to transform or express digitally what you could achieve with the OG synthesizers, even with the wall 5U behemoth modular systems, the first and original only way to change a note was through pitch bend, which was in layman's terms one potentiometer changing very, very slightly the voltage of the key you were pressing. Key as in piano keyboard. As in you press a C, which for argument's sake, let's say it's sending a 1 volt signal, and then you have a potentiometer that would drift that 1 volt to 1.1 volt or 0.9 volts. You would have a potentiometer wheel that would allow you to do that pitch drifting continuously, not in steps or jumps or chromatically. It would allow you some kind of what we guitar players know as bending. That something that we've been doing ever since the instrument was created. You play a note, put down the finger, stretch the string, and then the pitch continuously changes from the note you started, whatever fret you press, into the next fret, because for all the keyboard people coming to learn about synth and guitars, remember that when you bend strings on any string instruments, therefore I'm gonna be able to demonstrate with today I brought my bass guitar. When you're bending the string, you're adding tension, means you're raising the pitch. It visually gets confusing for anybody who has not tried it ever, because if my arm is the neck and we fret one out and start applying vibrato to that note, the motion you see is up and down, up and down, up and down. Similar to the motion you would do on a synthesizer on the pitch wheel, up and down, up and down. The difference is that pitch wheel has a center detent and it starts in the middle and goes higher pitch, lower pitch, higher pitch, lower pitch. On a guitar, the only thing you can do with your fingers on the neck is add tension, increase the pitch. So even when it looks like we're going down, we're not changing the pitch lower than the note was. We only go in the exact note, higher pitch, back to the exact note, higher pitch. We only go, if we had to replicate that on a pitch wheel, you would be only allowed to go up, not down, not below the center point. So that's how actually a guitar does vibrato. Up, 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 up. No, up, down, up, down, up, down, like many other instruments. Unless that everything obviously changes totally when you're talking about solid body electric guitars with floating bridge tremolo systems. That's when somebody decided mechanically to add the option of go to a lower pitch mechanically by decreasing the tension of the string. So on the neck, sorry. On the neck, you can only go up, 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 but on the whammy bar, on the little metal that you grip, that is on the body of the guitar, you can go up, down, up, down, up, down. That one can do the same process that a pitch bend wheel would do in a synth, not the one you do on the neck. And that's why it's saying that when you set this range to 1 and you start going up, 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 it's gonna go gradually, linearly, exactly the same increment that you increment the pitch is gonna make an increment on the note the same way you would do on a string instrument, as in but only up to half a step, one semitone, half a step. If very possibly you keep bending up and you go beyond the half a step range that the number 1 means, the system would turn off that note you started. Let's say you started on a C and you're making it sharp, 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 up to C sharp. If you want to go beyond C sharp, the system is going to say, okay, that means that keep stretching now means that you're not playing C sharp anymore. Now you're playing D. So it's going to stop D. It's going to stop however close or beyond C sharp you are. That note is going to shut and it's going to trigger a new note, which is going to be the pitch of D. That's what it means. And number 2 is exactly the same process. Is gonna, where is my, is gonna quantize, no, I need to be, I lost my mouse now. Gotcha. There. It's gonna quantize as well, the same process, but this time it's gonna give you 2 semitone bends. So if you start on C and starts bending up, increasing tension, increasing tension, increasing tension, it's gonna go from C to C sharp, from C sharp to D, in one single non-uninterrupted trip. But as soon as you go to D, by increasing the tension of the string and go beyond D, is gonna shut down D and is gonna play D sharp. It's gonna quantize to the next note. Okay. So that's the 1, 2, and 3 settings. It's gonna be even more evident when I start demonstrating how the transformation, how the interpretation, the translation that the unit does applies into a VST that is designed to be triggered by a keyboard. Because that's why it's interesting and to me fun to go through the motions and see where are the areas where the two worlds start rubbing weird to each other. Gain is to basically, it's an input gain to make the signal of whatever you're using to trigger the MIDI out is loud enough to be detected and not confused. The 4 LED, it's the level meter. Gain control is kind of a trimmer of what's the actual correlation between the voltage input from the guitar in our case, or line or mixer or anything, or microphone, becomes the proportion of voltage that comes out per voltage that comes in. Once again, these are not electronic facts of the unit, but for argument's sake, let's say that you can choose that for every volt the guitar sends in, the CV out is going to send 1 volt, or half. Per every volt your guitar sends in, you only want half a volt of the CV out, right? It's not that drastic. We're not talking full volts because of the whole 1 volt per octave standard, which is, I think, it was specific to some 5U module synthesizers. It got quite extended when synthesizers started becoming keyboards, and I think is the most common application for all Eurorack all Eurorack modules that I'm aware of. Okay, so means that if 1 volt equals C4, middle C in the keyboard, 2 volts equals C5 in the keyboard. So each time you increment a whole volt in the signal, in the control voltage, the note, the pitch that the oscillator is going to produce has to increment a whole octave. Means that every half step within the octave is a 12th of a volt increment. Okay, which makes it first manageable to try-ish to achieve the 7 or 8 octaves of a piano or beyond, because we know digital synthesizers can go beyond the piano range because they're not hand tied to physical limitations, just electronics. I mean, as long as the speaker can produce that pitch, the synthesizer can create that frequency. So great. So what was that about? Yeah, because of the volt parameters. But as I said, you can, since the guitar sends volt variations attached to amplitude, the higher the voltage, the louder the signal. Opposite as within a synthesizer, where the higher the voltage, the higher the pitch. Sorry, if that's CV applied to the frequency modulation of the oscillator. If it's applied to the envelope input of a voltage control amplifier, VCA, it will also translate into higher voltage, means louder signal. But it's not the same. Sounds the same. It's a little confusing. It's a lot of lingo, but it's just a trimmer to make the final performance the way you needed the device to do. So, line out, opposite line level signal derived from the audio input for the further processing if required. Gate control, use control to obtain suitable gate to output. CV out outputs a 1 volt per octave control voltage derived. Why do they need to specify it? When it's the most spread, the most common scale for pitch CV control, is because some manufacturers didn't agree with that standard and didn't abide by it. I'm thinking it's just I think Buchla modulars tend to use, I think, what they call 1 hertz per octave. So each raise in 12 half step, 12 semitones, in a of a pitch in pitch, it's equal to the increment of 1 hertz, which is a frequency of the alternation of the voltage alternation of the CV control signal. It's confusing, and I'm not sure, but it might be a little less precise. Probably that's why the volt per octave standard has did gain more popularity and is now more widespread. Gate out is the other jack connections, and is stated outputs a V trigger gate at plus 5 volts, suitable for triggering Eurorack modules such as envelope generators. Use the gate control 8 for best results. So the gate, it's a kind of a start command or now command, just in voltage form. It's just a little smaller in time, as in how long does it last, smaller in time that a pitch information or an envelope information or even a VCA information. It's a small burst of voltage that establishes a moment in time where something needs to happen. Why do they go through a whole paragraph to specify that is a gate out and outputs a V trigger? V stands for voltage at plus 5 volts. Because there's two types of signals, of bursts of electricity that have developed through the years in analog synthesizers. We're talking strictly analog synthesizers. One is the gate and one is the trigger. The trigger being a constant, extremely small, probably different voltage. I'm not totally sure about that, but extremely short time peak of voltage. And by peak, or better rephrase that, at an extreme of voltage, because different standards were developed at the same time by different brands, and that's why they go on saying that it's a V trigger. Means that the thing that needs to happen will happen when the voltage changes from nothing to something. Okay, from a minimum value to a maximum value, a higher value. That's called V trigger. I think the alternative is called S trigger, which I have to admit I can't remember why the S stands for. Something possibly silence or something, because it's exactly the opposite. You have the relax or the nothing is happening signal is a constant high or higher level voltage that suddenly stops for a very short amount of time and then comes back. I think S triggers were favored by Moog modular synthesizers, and I'm not sure how far into their keyboards the S trigger managed to get implemented. V trigger seems to be the most same as gate or trigger, same as volt per octave or hertz per octave, are different options, but the most widespread at the moment, mostly in Eurorack, is V trigger. You got no voltage, then a little burst of voltage, little as in short, because how little it is says in the paragraph, it's just plus 5 volts. So your rack is usually fed through feeds, or through 3 feeds of voltages, different voltages with a specific amount of amperes each, depending on the heftiness of the power supply you bought for your Eurorack system. But it's sent in 3 variants: plus 12 volts, so positive 12 volts, negative 12 volts, and positive 5 volts. So for this purpose, for the gate signaling of events, Eurorack chooses to use just 5 volts. Is plenty enough. There's enough in between steps in 5 volts for whatever they need to, information they need to codify into voltage to communicate, for the units to communicate. And also it doesn't take away from the plus 12 and minus 12 rails, which are more common use for actually creating sound and frequencies and qualities. So when you're talking about sound quality, you want a solid, consistent amount of voltage. The bigger the better, but obviously bigger voltage handling comes with tails and comes with all the side effects and problems that need to be navigated or danced around or massaged to find a nice compromise between audio quality and manufacturing of the actual synthesizer. So all that from that little paragraph. This unit is sending gate out. The other difference is a trigger is a unique amount of time, consistent and invariable. A trigger is always the same length of time. A gate, or I guess you could define a gate, uses the same amount of voltage, I think, plus 5 volts, but the length of time is variable and definable by the actual gate message. So when, let's say, a trigger signal is always, once again, these are not factual numbers, it's just round numbers to try to get the concept across. Let's say a trigger message is a 5-volt burst of 1 millisecond. All right. A gate out is still will be a 5-volt burst if you're using the V trigger standard, nothing to something. It's a burst that could be 1, 2, 3, 10, 15, 25 milliseconds long. Hence the gate name. It acts more like a gate that opens for something to happen, and that thing it is started keeps happening until the gate is closed, until somebody comes back and closes the gate. As in, I open the gate, people comes through, information comes through, things are happening, music is changing and evolving and being modulated, but then somebody comes around and closes the door, nobody can go through. That's the difference between a trigger and a gate, is the length. I assume it also came from the fact of the original wave shapes for the oscillators, both the VCOs, the audible range oscillators, and the LFOs, the too slow to be even a sound, okay, even a pitch that humans can hear. So technically an LFO would be frequencies below 20 hertz, 20 movements per second, okay? And one of the original, I think the original three shapes, and I don't know which one was first, was sine wave, sawtooth, and square wave. And the square wave is the one that explains why gates and triggers, because it's exactly the same thing. The only difference is that on an oscillator, on a square wave shaped VCO, you get a no voltage or no or very low voltage, full voltage on almost instantly, but the time is spending at low level and the time is spending at high level is exactly the same time, and is the changing per second that gives you the frequency. Okay, that's why it's called square, because if you try to draw it in a graph, time horizontal, voltage on the vertical, it would look like a square without one of the sides, a square with only three sides. Either the bottom side or the top side would be missing. So it's even, it's symmetrical. Then you get that's a square wave. Then you get a pulse wave. If you haven't heard, there's a concept called pulse wave modulation, which is basically the capability of taking that square wave, as in low to high, low to high, low to high, low to high, spending the same amount of time on the low as in the high, but being able to change those times, meaning I can change my low voltage time and make it longer or shorter. That would create that the higher voltage time occupies the time that the other half of the wave is not in. So once again, if I have a 1 millisecond low voltage on a square wave, that means that I have a 1 millisecond high voltage on a square wave. On a pulse wave, I could have a 1.2 millisecond low voltage and a 0.8 milliseconds high voltage. Or the other way around. I want my low voltage shorter, 0.5 milliseconds low voltage, and a 1.5 milliseconds high voltage. That would start creating asymmetrical, square looking, but asymmetrically drawn waves, to the point that I could shrink one of those states, low or high voltage, so much that the other stage in a graph would look just like a trigger, a pulse, an instant, sometimes so fast that you can't even hear it, which is what they call through zero. Basically, one of the two states takes the whole time. So it starts being a sound because it's not modulating from one state to the other on a frequency, but it's stable on the same status. That on a speaker makes no sound to human ears, sorry. And I assume that's where gate and triggers came from, since they were able to first change from a everlasting up down up down up down of a wave to a single cycle, which means one down and one up. That's one cycle. And they applied that single cycleness to the pulse wave shape. They found themselves with the option of creating one very short burst extremely short, the trigger, or or a variable, I can change how long it takes, longer, not long, but longer than a trigger burst of the same voltage. The same way I can shorten the pulse wave. Uh, it's not called frequency. It's called. It has another scientific name which I'm not gonna remember right now. Something like ratio. No, sorry, I can remember that now. Ask me again on another time. So that's why they have to specify so much information. So it's using a gate, as in it's not using a trigger. It's using a gate that basically you can open and it will stay open until you close it. And the standard of V trigger, of voltage trigger, nothing, no voltage is present, and then some voltage is present within the Eurorack parameters of never being higher than 5 volts, which is one of the specification standards of the Eurorack format. And that's why so much information in one single paragraph. Audio input is where you connect your microphone line or guitar. Drive through, it's a straight out, I assume high C. Outputs an unprocessed audio signal at the same level and impedance as the signal input. So yeah, it's basically what I call it's not even electronic. It's just one the contacts of the guitar jack mechanically bridged to the contacts of the output jack. It's what I call a link. It's just mechanically linked. Then hits a tiff. Okay. Perfect pitch PP-1 is a monophonic tracker, so playing chords will make it go nuts. If you've seen the previous shows, you've heard how nuts it goes. It doesn't do well with more than one pitch at a time. Play cleanly and precisely, so no remnants or tails of the tail frequencies of the previous note remains when you trigger the next, because that would technically become a chord to the ears of the PP-1. Consider compressing your instrument to ensure consistency of level. Synths is translating the dynamics of your playing into the voltage. That's a good point. Or possibly is to help the brain in the unit to ignore what it's just fret noise or string fret, what a string noise when you rub the strings, or just accidental vibrations, very quiet vibrations of other strings that would make the system go into panic. I don't know what note I need to translate. If you make the notes you play more consistent, as in on a narrower variation of volume, it will help the unit to trigger and to translate faster and more accurately. Set the gain control carefully. Too little and tracking could be impaired. Too much and your signal might distort. In case any of you don't know, the worry about distortion, not because distortion is ugly, but because distortion and on an electronic level creates harmonic frequencies that they were not there in the original signal. Once again, every musical note of every instrument guitar included, electric guitar included. Although we're used and trained to call it one single pitch, one single frequency, houses a myriad of many extra frequencies. But thankfully they're not all of them at the same volume. They don't get output, they're not output or projected or generated at the same volume as the frequency we call the note we play in. That frequency, that note, that's the loudest in the sequence, in the amount of frequencies that you generate. If you take that same signal with very loud, it's called fundamental, the center frequency, the important frequency, very, very loud, and tens and tens of other frequencies quieter, significantly quieter, and you distort electronically that signal, suddenly all those quieter signals become louder and they get closer to the loudness of the fundamental, which on an electronic level, on a pitch processing level that this unit does, is the same as if you were playing more than one note. So it goes short, it goes glitchy again, right? That's why distortion, it's advised to be avoided. The 11 meter width bend switch off will help. So yeah, that I think it's a 4 LED scale of of lights in between your control wheels. When that switch I was explaining about the quantization of the pitch bend, it's set to the position of off. Those 4 LEDs will tell you exactly the signal level of the that you're putting into the unit. How loud is your source? As in normal, warm, and distorting, clipping. Clip is another way of distorting a signal due to amplitude. And that's why they specify when the bend switch is off. It will tell you that, because when the bend switch is on, I think it goes into telling you how close to the quantized pitch are you, as in your tuning accuracy. It goes into that or something similar. So if you want to use effects on your instrument and then add them after tracking using the drive-through output. So if you still want to use your guitar sound, and then for the case of guitar you want distortion and or amp simulation or chorus or flanging or anything, just do it after the pitch detection has happened in the PP-1. That's why you have this drive-through out. Same for vocals, same for bass, same for any other signal you put into the unit. So take care in setting the gate control so that unwanted artifacts such as finger movement or noise of the microphone do not result in unwanted gates being produced. This is kind of a noise gate. That second wheel on the right is kind of telling how sensitive the translation system has to be to trigger the gate, as in how loud is your guitar need to be for the translation system to tell, oh, now is when you're playing a musical note because it's loud enough, then I'm gonna send a gate signal. Okay, if it's too sensitive, as in any type of voltage coming in will create a gate. On guitar, if you start fretting or sliding, that rubbing noise, the sympathetic vibration of the next strings, or even, I don't know, the Floyd Rose springs on the back of the cavity, if you're loud enough, are rattling and making some rumble, those could trigger and create a different note. Obviously, the system synchronizes the pitch he's hearing with the moment he's triggering the gate. As in, if you're changing the pitch in the meantime and he senses a secondary triggering of the gate, as in a new note is coming, and you're bending it in that precise instant, it will stop the note you were playing, and it will trigger a new note with the new pitch. So you were about to do sorry, and suddenly the unit what it hears is and you go, wait, why did it stop in the middle? Because it got re-triggered by any other vibration, because the sensitivity of the gate triggering is too low, as in very low signals would trigger it to create a new gate. It's basically a try and error system, but technically it should be just a set and forget once you get to whatever performance or gig you're going to or you want to use it in. Obviously, you have to reset those thresholds for every different guitar you have, different pickups, different output, different adjustment. Cool. All right, so let's try to make this work. Electrical precautions so you don't fry your unit. Cool. And that's the manual. That's all they give you. That's all they tell you. Every other information. Somehow I remember being probably not a full MIDI implementation chart like we explained in past shows, which is big, extensive, and very clear to understand when you know what are the lingo that you're reading. I don't know why I remember it had something similar, but I might be confused. I don't know, because I don't see it here. So let's move on. Let's take this away. Hello. So now let's try. And no, leave that there. So let's try to actually plug something, play something, and try to see how does it behave with a VST. For today's attempt, because I'm not totally sure it's gonna work the way I want it to work, I'm gonna try using a standalone instrument which also has a VST version. So if you don't have access to a standalone instrument, you could use it within a DAW as well on a very similar fashion. I'm not gonna try to explain DAW in connection and interaction today, because I think that deserves its own show, its own time, because although it's extremely similar, could become a little confusing due to the wide variety of DAWs available. And although they all do the same jobs, they don't use the same tools to do the same jobs. As in, the way they configure your hardware, your peripherals, the way they communicate in and out of the computer changes slightly, and I think it deserves a deeper explanation than I want to go through today, because once again I'm trying to stick to the 2 hour range, okay? And we're getting really, really close. So it won't be long, don't worry. So for today, what I chose is going through. Let me see, did I turn it off? I think I did. Lovely. As I said, one standalone instrument from a company I'm very favorable towards. Once again, no products you see in this little screen has ever been facilitated, offered in payment, or flat out purchased for me by any company, shop, or merchant. I have what I have because I'm stupid and spend all my money into these things. Okay, so and I buy, and the ones that buy in no way mean that they're the best you can buy. They don't even mean that they're the right tools for you. These are the right tools for me within my budget. All right. Uh, your mileage may vary. All the brands and models are available. So do your research. Find the best the one that works best for you. I go for Cherry Audio because I find their recreations sounding very, very nice, and the price scheme and the loyalty rewards. No, I could not call it that, but they're very nice to their customers. At least they're very nice to me. Uh, Not because they treat me specially, but they would be the same nice to you too if you choose to do business with them. As in, they understand, they is respect the right word? They and they reward your loyalty. That's what I was trying to say. You, and by you I mean any customer. So I'm gonna try to use today one that I didn't have much time to work through. So it's gonna be a triple a triple barrel thing, which is this little recreation. Well, in fact, it's a merging of two classics into one single product. Let me share it so you can see it. But first, I'm gonna put it here. Okay. Let's go through the process. This is exactly what you would go through if you one day buy the unit, put it in your rack, give it some power, plug a guitar to it, USB cable to your desktop, laptop, MacBook, Mac Studio, whatever type of computer you choose to use, and you try to play music through the PP-1 into your computer using virtual instruments, VST, like this one, if I can manage to show you. So, share my screen. Yes, I know. And we're gonna share the window. This window. Sorry. Now it's gonna come in a minute. Here we go. Da-da-da. This one. So this is Cherry Audio VSTs, virtual instruments, imagination of what the fusion of Yamaha CS80 and a Yamaha GX1, I believe, would sound like and be handled like. since it's a fusion of two very, very close concepts, because there were two units released definitely in the same decade, probably in the same five in the same 5 year gap. I think they were all released between 76 and 80, probably 75 to 80. Don't quote me on that. Sorry, I'm not an historian. And I'm bringing it because I'm a fan of the CS80 and what the masters of the CS80 made with the CS80. All the beautiful synthesizer music, it was made with that instrument. And I'm curious to see this GX80, this fusion of both worlds. How does it sound? And if I can handle it with the PP-1. So, first of all, I think we should configure the synth, because I need to first see, I already plugged the PP-1 on the unit. You see me doing that, and on the computer was already plugged. So we need to go to the synthesizer setup page and see on the block that says audio, which is this one. Sorry, I'm looking to the, because I have the synth in the other screen, otherwise I could not check your messages. So I think we have in sound. Let's see if that actually works. So let's try that. We have sound with a mouse on many standalone, on every DAW VSTs you can do, and to my knowledge also on every standalone version of the same VST. With your mouse you can go to this keyboard in the screen, tap on it, and it would play the key you're tapping with your mouse onto. Okay, so if I try, right, the effects, as in the case of this delay, this it's comes inbuilt in the VST. I'm not applying anything else apart from what the product actually can do. Among many reasons, because it might crash my computer if I try, but you know that that's the case. So first thing I want to know, through the setup page here in the cog, in the audio, sorry, I'm gonna go full screen for a second, because even in the other screen is extremely small. Yeah, audio MIDI, I thought so. In the audio MIDI tab of the synth, because this is a standalone, you need to tell this VST what is your sound path towards the destination you want to use it through. And I'm putting in these so generic terms because once you go into a computer and you start using computer-based or software-based sound generation apps, programs, software, the possibilities almost multiply logarithmically. The amount of destinations and usages and signal paths and options, they increase almost overwhelmingly. So that's why the first thing you get, I'm gonna go very quick for this because this is not the purpose of this episode. It's which of your hardware devices connected to the computer are you going to use to send the sound to your ears. And for that you need to choose the audio device type or the driver in case of Windows that you're going to use to send from the application. You're going to send the signal through to the speakers. in my case, headphones. So I'm going to use the fastest and most efficient type because this standalone allows me, although my particular setup, I'm not actually using the GX80's driver. I'm using a third-party mixer driver, which is this Voicemeeter virtual ASIO driver, which has a bunch of 8 channels in this case. I can choose to tell him the sample rate, as in sample rate technically is how much definition the audio is gonna have on the ballpark, on the likes as you would consider megapixels on a photo camera or on a video camera. That doesn't mean that the result is gonna be bigger, but it means that if you zoom in and try to be more accurate on your decisions, you'll be able to manage a higher detail. That is obviously that comes with a cost of CPU cycles. The higher the detail of the information you're handling, the bigger the file, the longer it takes, the higher latency it creates in the process. And the second tool, you have to control the latency, the time between you tell the computer to do something and you hear the result of said something, comes here in milliseconds. Obviously, if you go for the shortest time, why wouldn't you? That also means that you need a more powerful computer. Let's say if latency is the time it would take you to drive from London to Paris in France, if you want to drive there in 10 hours, you could go on a train. But if you want to go there in 5 hours, you kind of need a plane. Or, I don't know. Yeah, a plane. I don't think anybody else can do that in 5 hours. But if you want to go there in 1 hour, then you kind of need a military jet plane or a private jet plane. Okay? So the faster you want to do the whole process be, as in the shorter reaction time between my finger doing something and my ear listening to something, takes higher power in your computer. Meaning if your hardware is not powerful enough, the result is gonna be faulty, in a way of speaking. You're not gonna get the result you're expecting because you're asking a train to run from London to Paris in an hour. The train is gonna say, mate, are you joking? I'm gonna basically try and die in the first turn because I can't drive that fast safely. So it's a balancing game. For this laptop I'm using, I found that 48,000 samples per second, it's a nice compromise. I'm not missing much details, and it sounds better than 44, than the lower options. And these 256 samples, which for more powerful computers is a lot of time, keeps everything kind of stable for me. If I had to change it, just open the tab. Cool. It's not letting me for one single reason. The mixer I'm using limits my options with the third-party applications. My mixer is set up to 256 and 48 because that's when it doesn't glitch at all in this computer. That's why, although this is designed to allow me to handle all the types of devices that have more options to choose from. In this particular case, with this particular driver, with my software mixer, my only option is 48 to 56. Your mesh, your results will definitely vary. Okay, so play around with it. So now what I want is to go down to the MIDI options, and this is what makes me worry, because this also should be a list. Okay, and one of the things in the list should be the PP-1. Because here in the list is only giving me one option, which is not the PP-1 MIDI device, but my Steinberg audio interface with MIDI communication built in. So I don't know what's going on. Let me try Googling something just for a minute. Let's go back to this. Or in fact, let me check another thing. Yeah. You know those moments where you think your guitar system, as in guitar, lead, pedals if you have them, amplifier, speakers, it's all connected and it should work, and it had been working flawlessly at home for years, and then you go to that one 20-minute long gig that you agreed to help somebody with, you plug everything exactly the same at home and suddenly it doesn't work. Yeah, troubleshooting, huh? My experience with electronic devices and synthesizers is, yeah, troubleshooting a ton. So I'm gonna try the hard way. So I'm gonna plug the PP-1 on my 5-string multi-scale bass. Let me check if I'm getting signal. Okay, I'm gonna put down the gain. I'm gonna give it a little bit of gate. Okay, now I can see my signal not going higher than, not going into distortion. I don't know if you can see in the camera. You might be able to see it if I do. Okay, once again, wrong screen. If I do this, I might be able to show you. See? Here, that blinking LED, those 3 segments is telling me how strong my signal is and when is something coming into it. So we go back to the synths. I can see no questions, so let's keep going. And let's see if this if any MIDI signal from the PP-1 was coming in, it would show here. This, in fact, can I take this? This is to teach the VST mic what do I want the VST to do with the MIDI messages I send it if I want them to do something different that is what is established by default by the MIDI protocol. So if I want to change that and make it do something different, or I have a controller with extra controllers that are not specified by default, I can take those extra controllers, make a list, and make it and programmed or script what effect will those controllers do have in the synthesizer. So, but in the meantime, when that's not on, this should show MIDI interactions. So, okay, why is this not sensing MIDI? Let's try one thing, because I said the purpose of today was testing the USB MIDI connection. But just for troubleshooting sake, just to be sure that the PP-1 is sending MIDI out, which would be one way to troubleshoot why is this software not finding the connection, the software connection with the PP-1, is by trying the 5-pin DIN, because it has different, let's call it protocols. Sorry, not because it has different protocols, but because I have a second input, MIDI input option, which is my audio interface. So I'm gonna try to connect through there. So yeah, this is a 5-pin DIN type connector. Okay, it's been out there and being used for MIDI since the release of MIDI in 1984. And same as an audio signal, this the 5-pin DIN communication system is unidirectional. Means the PP-1 has an output. That's where I connect. Both ends of the cable are identical, so doesn't matter which one you put anywhere. It's the same cable. The pins are connected one to one. But what is sending is output signal. So this is an output that I need to plug into an input. The same thing I would do with a microphone. I got my microphone. Sorry, which I banged again. Sorry, which I banged again. Okay. And that cable from the microphone would go into the output from the microphone, would go into the input of a mixer. MIDI works, 5-pin MIDI works exactly the same. One cable is one way. If I would want my interface to talk to the PP-1, I would need an extra cable, a second cable, from the output of the interface to the input, which in this case does not exist in 5-pin DIN format of the PP-1. So if the PP-1 had in and out on a 5-pin format, I would have to have plugged two cables into it, one coming out, one going in, as in one having information sending out and one receiving information. That's how it works. So my out goes into my in. Go back to the setup. And I choose as the communication, the MIDI communication way, path, channel, name it whatever you want, the door I want to open to allow MIDI to come into the software, being the MIDI side of my audio interface. So now any MIDI message that goes into my interface should get into the software. Let's get this out of the way and put it to the test. So ladies and gentlemen, we have MIDI. This sound, I'm not totally sure why, because it doesn't sound like the one I clicked on the keyboard before. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Okay. You see that the patch is called Alien. Okay. Let me see if up here. Why is this failing? Okay. That's not the same. So sometimes by hot connecting MIDI, some messages get kind of accidentally generated. And one of them could be change the program for a specific channel. That cable I show you, although there's no relation, but although it has only 5 pins, 5 little metal contacts, it's digitally encoding 16 channels, 16 virtual channels of information. MIDI instruments, multi-timbral MIDI instruments, like multi-timbral keyboards or modules or VSTs, can listen to MIDI messages on more than one channel at the same time. And what I'm deducing, I have no facts to back me up at all so far, is that the sound that the keyboard is triggering, as soon as it wants to react, must be on a different channel or range, because that's another possibility, that one the bass is triggering. It's very likely to be the range. Okay. So that weird thing is because of harmonics. I'm trying to show the fretboard and the VST at the same time, and it's not an easy task without webcam. So basically, I'm moving myself in what appears to be the range that the keyboard is showing, which I think is this is D. Yep, showing the D, but it's D1. No, sorry, this is D2. This is D1. And D1 triggers a completely different sound. That's curious, right? So even if I drop another octave, which is in this bass guitar, even these bass guitars notes are kind of on the very limits of the musical notes, as in it goes extremely low. Not not as low as I think it's a Bosendorfer Imperial, but just by I think 3 notes, 3 or 5 steps, 5 5 half steps, 2.5 steps. So this would be D0 is basically wind. Although, hello, that harmonic seems, because if I trigger the natural harmonic, you see it tried to trigger one of the higher notes, but then it heard the rest of the harmonics. So weird. Okay, let me try to change the program manually. Obviously, I'm gonna try to get my mouse to the program change. And I'm going to try to do, well, let's start with a brass. Okay. I don't know. Well, Chariot's brass. That tickles my fancy. Okay, so let's just start with the on-screen visible range notes. Once again. Oh, it's very hard. That G sharp is very hard to see how it moves, because it's just a faint sheen of the key. Okay, let's go low. On camera. Okay, this one doesn't change as much when you go low. Okay, let me see. So first of all, can I change me? No. No. Let's see if I can change the range of the keyboard. I think I'm trying to move my image from the screen, but it doesn't seem to like it. Yeah, this is maximize. No, it doesn't seem to like it. Oh wait, can I do this? No. Okay, so sorry, I'm gonna have to look around. I'm looking for something that says transpose. could it be hidden and I'm not seeing it? Hmm. Yeah, I don't seem to see it, to be able to see it because that screen is too far and this screen is too small. I'm cursed basically. Well, I have a master pitch which is not gonna move the keyboard on the VST screen, but it's gonna change the actual pitch of what I send. Because if I was still sending voltage, let's say I'm playing 1 volt with the master pitch, I can make 1 volt play the note is meant to play. Let's say C4 or C5 or D4. That's what the master pitch does. It's kind of a electronic transposition, which is very useful in instruments like this where you're using 2 layers of sound to create a more complex sound. So oscillate. Okay, I don't see. I don't see that. So basically, as long as I stay within guitar note range, which I think is everything. Basically, that's the end of the bass. Okay, and it's forcing me to play a little too hard. Let me see if I can tweak it. All that thing is basically misadjustments of the system and harmonics that I'm getting through because I'm not muting properly or because I'm accidentally generating harmonics by half pressing the strings or barely touching the strings. All nothing new for the guitar people. Is the type of things you would do on a system with high gain to get extra sounds, octaves, pinch harmonics, etc. All that type of stuff. But the problem is the PP1 needs to make sense out of those and make musical sense. He just tries a little too hard to jump very quickly from all this overwhelming information I'm sending. The way to avoid it is to have a neater, cleaner, more defined articulation of your notes. So basically, be very aware of your mutings. but it's not doing too bad considering that these notes I'm sending, they're on the hardest end of a digital detection system like this for to detect, because they're so bassy and slow that is having a very hard time to follow, but it's still managing. Sorry. So this is the reaction to vibrato. Let's do it higher so it's more noticeable. See, there's it's chromatic. It's either or. It's not doing a slide through. Let me check what's the setting for that. So that's how it's doing on off. So I'm gonna, because as we explained, for the digital side of the device, when it's set to off, means it's gonna always quantize everything at play. So it's either or. It's either one key or the next key, nothing in between. Now I'm gonna ask it to allow me for half a step of bend. So now when I do the same thing, it should generate a pitch variation in between those keys on the screen. Funny enough, this VST, because it's trying to recreate the uh, the touch strip that I think it was present on both GX1 and CS80. At least I'm certain about the CS80. This, if you look at the screen, this little on top of the keys was says cherry out in that black ribbon or strip of black line. You see this a green circle and a reddish square. Every time I bend, because that's something you would apply, because the CS80, I don't remember it having a pitch wheel because it had this touch strip. The same effect that the pitch wheel would have on any other synthesizer could be triggered with this touch strip on the CS80. You just put your finger on the strip. Wherever you landed your finger would be your initial pitch, the one you started with the key, and then you could move either side with different effects depending where exactly, which position on the strip you landed your finger in the first place. Going left, it would raise the pitch. Going down, it would lower the pitch. I think CS80 was capable of 5 steps or 1 octave rise and 3 octaves detune. So your highest range would be putting your finger all the way on the left of the ribbon and sliding all the way to the right of the ribbon would give you, I think, 1 or 2 octaves. Can't remember exactly. But if you do the opposite, you landed your finger on the right, on the right end of the ribbon, where at the moment where the green circle is, and slide your finger down to the other end, it will give you, I think to remember, 3 or more octaves of detuning range, and all the combinations in between. It was a really special thing I've seen. I've never tried one, I've never touched one, but the people I see demonstrating is a very nice thing. So basically, it's trying to show that action within the ribbon. So it's translating the MIDI pitch bend information it's receiving from the guitar into graphics on the screen on the touch ribbon. So once again, I go and play Y note and bend it up. And as I said, it's set to half a step. The second I go beyond half a step, it just stops and plays the next key. So I'm playing E. Exactly. I'm playing E. And by bending, it should be playing a pitch bend E, as in a sharp E. But if I bend even higher, plays F, stops playing E, and then plays F, and applies the same variation. But I'm not changing fret. I'm just stretching the string from E to sharper E. And the minute I go into flat F, it quantizes to F. It starts playing proper F. As in, the first millisecond is proper F, and the second millisecond is whatever pitch variation of F I'm actually bending up. Because when you're bending, you're basically going, I would call it analog, but you go continuously on a continuous fashion from one pitch morphing into the next. But you don't have a second attack. It would be a legato note in a way of speaking. It's a bend. It's not a legato because you're not having a differentiation in time between two notes. One note is becoming the other by changing the tuning of the note. So, because it's been told to do so for only half a step, the minute I ask it to do it to half 0.1 steps, says, okay, no, that's not a sharp E, that's a F, but oh wait, you playing, let's call it 60 cents above E, which is 40 cents below F. So the first millisecond, I'm going to quantize to F, and the second millisecond, I'm going to give you whatever deviation from F, your very, very sharp E pitch equals to. That's why the wiggly kind of movement. So once again, I'm playing a D. Wait. Sorry, yeah, my bad. I'm playing a D. Let's do it with keys with half steps in the middle. Let's go for F. Okay, so I'm playing an F. And I'm gonna bend F. See, it's not playing F sharp. It's pitch bending F. And now that I'm going above F sharp, is when it starts saying, oh, what are you actually doing? Plus, it's losing signal because of the decay of the note. But if I keep pushing up, so I start with F, and I'm going to try to make a, I don't know, a two-step bend if I manage, you're going to see that it's going to play F. It's going to bend to F sharp, and then it's going to play G and bend up or down to wherever I am. And this is it. So start with F and goes to G. I haven't changed fret. I'm just bending. That's why you have the other position, number 2. So now when I play F, it's gonna keep stretching until I play above G, because it's gonna stretch half a step to F sharp and half a step to G in one go. But if I keep going higher, then it's gonna stop and play G sharp. So once again, go to the F and start bending like a maniac. See? It's the first beat of the bending is one single attack and go and one progression, and then it starts quantizing anything that goes above that. That is the purpose of that switch, to model that or to shape that behavior to the performance you need in this case, the VST instrument to do. Good. Once again, we've gone beyond the 2-hour mark. I've gone beyond the 2-hour mark. You know how this works. I'm gonna check. Oh, hello. I got a message from our very, very dear friend, Mr. Synthetic. Dude, really, it's okay. I know you're busy. You're going through your own circumstances, and I totally understand. And it's totally okay. Just keep in touch, and let's keep doing nice noises. And I'm glad that you're back from your trip. Keep on trucking. Play some. Huh? Yeah, Asturias by the guitar master Albeniz. I wish I could play that type of classical Spanish guitar. Ah, interesting. Yeah, I don't know how old is that message, because I don't have a clock on me, but well, if the synth is not coming out, I don't know what to do. Give me a second, because yeah, it should be coming out. Oh, booger. Okay, let's try now. Remove the pitch bend and try to go through the same demo again. Jesus Christ. I missed you, mate. I missed you. So now you can actually hear the synth. There, subsonic. Well, at least I got to fix it for the last 3 minutes of the show. Jesus Christ, yeah. Too much tech and too little brain power. Ah, I feel such a fool, like a fool. But at least you saw the process, the to get the PP-1. Although this is not really a victory because the whole point of today was using the USB connection, which technically is slightly faster and more accurate. And I had to ended up going to the always dependable 5-pin DIN MIDI through my interface. So I have to research on what's going on. Why is my computer or my system not detecting the PP-1 as it should? It should show like a MIDI device in the MIDI list I showed before. So when you go to the config part of the software, I'm on the wrong screen. In this little window down here, this should be, in my case at least, a list of two things to choose from. One is my audio device, and the other should be in the list as Behringer PP-1. I can't remember if the first unit I had made me install a driver, which I don't think it did. I'm pretty sure that the PP-1 is class compliant. So by plugging the USB, it should detect it. Let me check one thing very quickly. Well, since I'm not gonna make any more noises with this today, although 2 seconds of noises is never enough. We know that. Let me check this, because this might give me a troubleshooting answer to what's going on. No, I mean, no, this thing I checked is not conclusive neither, but it's not detecting it neither. So I have to do some homework and find out why. Could be because my system is half configured, it's not finished. Could be because it's I already, like I proved already in the previous show, is because I'm just an ignorant. I'm a total noob to these musical toys. Or it could be, I don't think so. It could be something wrong with the unit. But at least you see that it's possible. It can do. The guitar can become MIDI, MIDI can become sound, sound can become music. It needs a little tweaking. It needs fine caressing and finding the sweet spot, the right interaction between the specific guitar with the unit and with the software system. But it's doable. It's there. I encourage you to go and get it. Go and do it. And that's going to be enough for today, because after making a fool of myself for 20 minutes, Jesus, I feel so stupid right now. Okay. Thank you very much. Remember, all the other shows are going to be happening this weekend. Very likely Synchrotron doing his usual modular and guitar improvisations Saturday morning. I'm totally certain that Rance is gonna be 1-ish o'clock UK time. I don't know if JX3D is gonna do his senior synth stream. I'm not aware of that, sadly. And I'm pretty sure a ton of stuff is gonna happen on Sunday. Thank you very much for coming. Take the best care. Let's see, let's schedule and see again each other. Once again, wrong screen. Da, da, da. Take a drink. Next one should be a little more exciting. I'll do my best. And it's going to be November 7th, Friday, November 7th, because November starts on a Saturday. So we're missing that first weekend. So, yeah, first date, November 7th, 2025. I'll try to look into that thing with it. Well, I might try to show how to do the same job or a better job, one that actually makes a sound. Jesus Christ. Into a DAW, but also getting the DAW to do something within your Eurorack from the USB connection. That's gonna be something really neat to go on about, even if I manage to do both. Thank you very much. I've been Froze. You've been wonderful, and see you very soon. Bye bye.